Chevy, Pontiac, Buick, and Oldsmobile all built some seriously cool muscle cars under the GM banner. But out of all those legendary rides, these next few weren't just fast. They were the absolute quickest machines General Motors ever unleashed. 1969 Chevrolet Nova SS. Top speed, 127 miles per hour. The Chevrolet Nova actually started out as the Chevy 2 back in 1962. It was meant to be a simple, no-frills kind of car. Basically the most basic way to get from point A to point B under the bow tie badge. You could get it as a 2-door, a 4-door, or even a station wagon, and it quickly became a hit among budget-minded families. But here's the thing. Chevy also offered an optional 327 V8, and since the Nova was a small, lightweight car, that little combo made it surprisingly quick. Then, in 1968, everything changed. The car got a full redesign, and Chevy dropped the Chevy 2 name entirely. From then on, it was just the Nova. It still carried that affordable, practical vibe, but Chevy decided to give it some muscle. They introduced the Nova SS, turning this small family car into one of the most compact and fastest muscle machines to ever come out of Detroit. The 1969 Nova SS packed a tuned-up version of the big block 396, giving it explosive acceleration and making it one of the very first true sleeper cars. The kind of ride that looked tame but could absolutely destroy you off the line. 1970 Pontiac Grand Prix SJ455, 128 miles per hour. Pontiac introduced the Grand Prix as a brand new model that blended a few different ideas. Part personal luxury car, part sports car, and maybe even a bit of a grand tourer. Whatever category you put it in, one thing was clear. It looked amazing and had plenty of power to back it up. For the rest of that decade, it actually stood as Pontiac's most expensive coupe. Then came the second generation in 1969, and things started to get interesting. Pontiac downsized the Grand Prix from a full-size to a mid-size body, but the engines? Yeah, they went from pretty good to holy crap. By 1970, you could order the Grand Prix with the massive 455 cubic inch V8, turning what used to be a luxury cruiser into a legitimate muscle car. Pontiac had big ambitions with this one. They wanted the second-gen Grand Prix to go head-to-head with the Dodge Charger. That might have been a bit of a stretch, but with that new power under the hood, the Grand Prix definitely earned some muscle car respect. '70 Chevrolet Chevelle 454 SS, 130 miles per hour. Few cars from the golden age of muscle are as legendary or as feared as the 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle 454 SS. Like the Chevy 2, later known as the Nova, the Chevelle first hit the scene back in the early 60s. It came in just about every body style you could imagine. A coupe, a sedan, a station wagon, and believe it or not, even a pickup, since the El Camino was actually part of the Chevelle lineup starting in 1964. And just like the Nova, the Chevelle offered a super sport performance package that made it a serious street machine. But things really kicked into high gear in 1970, when General Motors finally dropped its ridiculous engine size restrictions. That's when the Chevelle got its legendary 454 cubic inch V8, an absolute monster under the hood. General Motors itself later admitted just how special this car was, saying, "No muscle car soared higher." They even called the 1970 Chevelle 454 SS the rarest of all 1970 Chevelles. And honestly, that says it all. This car was pure, unfiltered American muscle at its best. 1969 Pontiac GTO Judge Ram Air 4, 130 miles per hour. Back in 1969, General Motors still had this goofy internal rule that banned anything over 400 cubic inches in their mid-size cars. But the Pontiac GTO Judge had another problem to deal with, a company policy that actually held it back on paper. See, the 1969 GTO Judge came with the Ram Air 400 cubic inch V8, officially rated at 370 horsepower and 445 pound-feet of torque. But let's be real, those numbers were definitely underrated. GM had a strange policy back then. No car could be advertised with more power than the Corvette. So, to keep the flagship happy, a lot of muscle cars from that era were purposely rated lower than what they were truly putting out. The GTO, of course, was the car that kicked off the muscle car craze back in 1964, offering big power at a price regular buyers could actually afford. By the time the second generation rolled around, Pontiac wanted to spice things up, and that's where the Judge came in. It was built as a stripped-down, no-nonsense speed machine designed to take on the Plymouth Roadrunner head-on. With its Ram Air induction setup, high-rise aluminum intake manifold, and high-flow exhaust system, the '69 GTO Judge squeezed every last drop of power out of that 400 cubic inch engine. It wasn't just fast. It was pure muscle car attitude wrapped up in bright paint and wild graphics that made sure everyone knew exactly what had just smoked them. '70 Oldsmobile 442 W30. Top speed 135 mile per hour. The Oldsmobile 442 actually started out as a performance package for the Cutlass, something built to go toe-to-toe with the Pontiac GTO. But by 1968, it had earned enough respect to become its own standalone model. That same year, Oldsmobile took things even further with a special edition, the legendary Hearst Olds. Then came 1970, and even though Chrysler snagged the Hearst branding for themselves, Oldsmobile proved they didn't need anyone's help to build a serious performer. The 1974 42 with a W30 performance package and a massive 455 cubic inch engine was a total beast, faster than any Hearst Olds before it. To put it in perspective, both the 68 Hearst Olds and the standard 68 442 could run the quarter mile in about 13.9 seconds. But the 1970 W30, it ripped through that same stretch in just 13.7 seconds. Motor Trend didn't even bother sugarcoating it. They called the 1974 42 W30 a drag racing machine. And honestly, that's the perfect way to describe it. Raw power, no gimmicks, and a clear reminder that Oldsmobile knew exactly how to build a real muscle car. '70 Chevrolet Camaro Z28, 135 miles per hour. The 1970 Chevrolet Camaro had kind of a weird start. It didn't actually hit factories until February of 1970, right in the middle of the model year, which is why so many people call it the 1970-and-a-half Camaro. But here's where it gets even funnier. Chevy advertised a massive 455 cubic inch engine option for that year, but none were ever built. Total myth. On the flip side, the Z28 version did get something special, the same LT1 engine you'd find in a Corvette. The 1970 Z28 is often considered the best of that short half-year run, and many gearheads see it as the last truly great Camaro of the classic muscle era. Even though it only had a 350 cubic inch V8, it could hang with, or even outrun, other GM muscle cars packing 100 more cubic inches of displacement. In a retro test drive, Car and Driver called the 1970 Z28 an automobile of uncommon merit and said it challenges Ferrari. And honestly, that tells you everything you need to know. This Camaro was a refined street brawler that could hold its own against some of the best sports cars in the world. '70 Buick Grand Sport 455 Stage 1, 135 miles per hour. Like Oldsmobile, Buick isn't exactly the first name that comes to mind when you think of high-performance machines. But back in the classic muscle car era, both brands shocked everyone by building some seriously powerful rides. Buick had not just one, but two standouts, the GSX and the equally impressive Grand Sport. The Grand Sport started out as a performance package for the Skylark, designed to take on heavy hitters like the GTO Judge and the Oldsmobile 442. But in 1970, Buick took things to another level with the Grand Sport 455 Stage 1, a factory-built street monster that could run the quarter mile in the low 13s straight off the showroom floor. Officially, Buick rated it at 360 horsepower, but anyone who's ever driven or tested one will tell you that number was a joke. Many enthusiasts swear it was actually putting out close to 500 horsepower. In fact, a dyno test of a similar 455-equipped Buick showed it making 471 horsepower. So yeah, for a brand known for quiet, comfortable cruisers, Buick's Grand Sport Stage 1 was a wolf in a three-piece suit. It looked classy, but it could absolutely tear up the strip. 1967 Chevrolet Camaro SS 396, 140 miles per hour. Speaking of cars that were seriously underrated in the power department, the 1967 Chevrolet Camaro SS might just be the most slept-on muscle car ever built. Thanks to yet another one of General Motors' ridiculous internal policies, no car was allowed to be faster or more powerful than the Corvette. Now get this. The 1967 Corvette with the 396 was rated at 425 horsepower, but that exact same engine in the 67 Camaro SS rated at just 325 horsepower. Yeah, that's a 100 horsepower difference on paper, but not in reality. The Corvette topped out at about 143 miles per hour, while the Camaro's top speed was around 140. So clearly both engines were making roughly the same power. GM just didn't want their new pony car stepping on the Corvette's toes. But here's the thing. The Camaro didn't need to outshine the Corvette. Its real mission was to take down the Ford Mustang. And on the streets and at the track, that's exactly what it did. The 67 Camaro SS quickly earned a reputation as a true giant killer. Underrated, underestimated, and absolutely unforgettable. 1973 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am 455 Super Duty, 155 miles per hour. By 1973, the golden age of muscle cars was pretty much over. The once mighty legends of the late 60s had either been watered down beyond recognition or killed off entirely. But apparently, nobody told Pontiac, because that same year, they built their most powerful Firebird ever. Enter the 1973 Firebird Trans Am 455 Super Duty, the car Pontiac should have been building since 1967, but wasn't allowed to until now. While most other muscle cars of the era were getting choked out by new emissions laws and fuel economy rules, the Trans Am managed to slip through a weird loophole. Its massive 455 cubic inch V8 was technically grandfathered in, letting Pontiac unleash one last true muscle machine when everyone else was giving up. Despite being one of the hottest cars of the year, only about 4,550 of these Super Duty Firebirds were ever sold, making them incredibly rare today. Car and Driver absolutely loved it back then, calling it the last of the fast cars and praising its sort of acceleration that hasn't been seen in years. And honestly, they were right. In a time when the muscle car era was gasping for air, the 1973 Firebird Trans Am Super Duty was proof that Pontiac still had fire left in its soul. (1963) Pontiac Tempest Super Duty, 163 miles per hour. The 1963 Pontiac Tempest might just be one of the most overlooked early muscle cars ever made. You could call it a kind of proto-muscle car, right up there with the 1957 Chrysler 300C or the AMC Rambler Rebel. But a handful of special editions built that year make people seriously question whether the 1964 GTO was really the first true muscle car after all. Pontiac built exactly 12 Tempest Super Duty models specifically for NHRA factory experimental racing. These cars were rushed through production because GM was about to ban all factory-built race cars, and Pontiac wanted to get them out the door before that happened. Now here's where it gets wild. One of those ultra-rare Super Duty Tempests turned up as a barn find on eBay. It was missing its 421 cubic inch engine, and the starting bid was just $500. The owner had no idea what they were sitting on, but collectors sure did. The car eventually sold for a staggering $226,521 without the engine. Had it still been equipped with that original 421 power plant, and later restored properly, it could have claimed the title of the fastest factory-built car GM ever made. No exaggeration. The Tempest Super Duty was that far ahead of its time.